The way a planet tilts on its axis of rotation with respect to its orbital plane around a star, which we know as axial tilt, could be key to the emergence of complex life. According to a new study, a modest axial tilt, like Earth's, helps increase the production of oxygen, which is vital for life as we know it, and planets with too small or too large tilts might not be able to produce enough oxygen for complex life to prosper. The bottom line is that worlds that are modestly tilted on their axes may be more likely to develop complex life, said Planetary scientist Stephanie Olson of Purdue University. This helps us narrow down the search for complex, perhaps even intelligent, life in the universe. It is possible that life could arise outside of the parameters we know here on Earth, of course, but this pale blue dot is the only world we know for sure that harbors life. Therefore, it is convenient to model our searches accordingly. When we look for habitable worlds in other parts of the galaxy, the first thing we look for is it relatively small and rocky, like Earth? And does the star orbit at a distance called the habitable zone, the Goldilocks region of not too hot, not too cold, where temperatures allow liquid water on the surface? Those questions are good, but the factors that contribute to the emergence of life are probably much more complex. The presence of a magnetic field, for example, is believed to be quite important, because it protects the planetary atmosphere from stellar winds. The eccentricity of the planet's orbit and what kinds of other planets are present in the system could also be key. Olson and her team were a little more granular, observing the presence and production of oxygen, specifically, the conditions on the planet that can affect the amount of oxygen produced by photosynthetic life. Most, but not all, organisms on Earth need oxygen to breathe. We can't live without it. However, the early Earth had little oxygen. Our atmosphere only became rich in oxygen around 2.4 to 2 billion years ago, a period known as the Great Oxidation Event. It was triggered by a boom in cyanobacteria, which pumped out large amounts of oxygen as a metabolic waste product, allowing for increased multicellular life. Olson and her team sought to understand how the conditions in which cyanobacteria could thrive arose, using models. The model allows us to change things like the length of the day, the amount of atmosphere, or the distribution of the land to see how marine environments and oxygen-producing life in the oceans respond, Olson explained. His model showed that several factors could have influenced the transport of nutrients in the oceans in a way that contributed to the increase in oxygen-producing organisms such as cyanobacteria. Over time, the Earth's rotation slowed, its days lengthened, and continents formed and migrated. Each of these changes could have helped increase oxygen content, the researchers found. Then they took into account the axial tilt. The axis of the Earth is not exactly perpendicular to its orbital plane around the Sun, it is inclined at an angle of 23.5 degrees from the perpendicular. Think of a desk globe. This tilt is the reason we have seasons. Tilt outward, or toward the Sun influences seasonal variability. Seasonal temperature changes also influence the oceans, resulting in convective mixing in currents, and the availability of nutrients. So it's perhaps not surprising that axial tilt had a significant effect on oxygen production in the team's study. Higher tilt increased photosynthetic oxygen production in the ocean in our model, in part by increasing the efficiency with which biological ingredients are recycled, explained Planetary scientist Megan Barnett of the University of Chicago. The effect was similar to doubling the amount of nutrients that support life. But there is a limit. Uranus, for example, is tilted 98 degrees from the perpendicular. Such an extreme incline would result in seasonality that may be too extreme for life. A small incline, too, might not produce enough seasonality to promote the correct level of nutrient availability. This suggests that there may also be a Goldilocks zone for axial tilt, neither too extreme nor too small. It's another parameter we can use to help narrow down planets in other parts of the galaxy that are likely to host life as we know it. This work reveals how key factors, including a planet's seasonality, could increase or decrease the chance of finding life-derived oxygen outside our solar system, said biogeochemist Timothy Lyons of the University of California, Riverside. These results will undoubtedly help guide our searches for that life.